Let's bring in Europe editor Armen Georgian, who's at the EU Parliament in Strasbourg, where that vote to replace Eva Kaili as vice president has just taken place. Armen, tell us a bit more about the vote and the newly elected VP, Marc Angel.
Well, this was a resounding success for Marc Angel, the Luxembourgish MEP, who takes over from the disgraced Eva Kaili as one of the vice presidents of the European Parliament. He got 307 votes in the second round, which was well ahead of his next placed rival, who got 185 votes. So it wasn't entirely a surprise, actually, because there had been a deal cut between three of the parliamentary blocks here. So it was expected that he would get this result. He's been called the sociable socialist, a jovial fellow, a very sort of friendly presence in the corridors of power here, a kind of a jolly fellow in a sense, someone who's not averse to putting on a loud shirt from time to time, though today he was, like everybody else here, was soberly dressed, obviously, for a vote of this importance. But he's worked on some very serious issues. He's been active on the gaps between the pay for men and women, for example. He's also been involved in LGBTI issues here at the European Parliament, and before he became an MEP, he had a career in politics in Luxembourg. He chaired the Luxembourg Parliament's Committee on International and European Affairs, so he has plenty of political experience. He didn't actually speak straight after his victory was announced because procedurally they had to move on to another topic, but he's said in the last few days that there's not a moment to lose in pursuing these transparency and anti-corruption reforms that are needed in the wake of Qatargate.
Right, and of course he is now replacing Eva Kaili, who was one of the main suspects in Qatargate. What are the latest twists in that scandal, and how are the MEPs planning on addressing those loopholes? What are the reforms that they're going for?
Well, one cloud that is, I think, fair to say, overshadowing developments here in Strasbourg today is that piece of news that you gave in your introduction about one of the four people who'd been held in custody over Qatargate, Pier Antonio Panzeri, the former MEP, entering into a plea bargain with the Belgian judiciary, which means essentially offering information in return for a reduced sentence. What kind of information is he going to offer? That obviously has caused some jitters here. And in terms of other developments, well, there are also two MEPs whose immunity is in the process of being lifted. That process got underway earlier this month, but that takes several weeks, so that is ongoing. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But in the meantime, the President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola, has put forward a series of reforms that she says need to take place. That includes making the current transparency register mandatory, so people will have to put in all their meetings into that register, and crucially setting up an independent ethics body. And her proposal includes a mixture of people from the EU institutions and outside people, such as former judges, former members of the Court of Auditors. But the key thing there, I think, will be to try and get the balance right between existing representatives of the EU institutions and people who don't represent those core EU institutions, if you like, because, of course, the more people from EU institutions are represented in that ethics body, the more it's going to be open to criticism of not being truly independent. In other words, because some MEPs have said this independent ethics body needs to be truly independent, that's to say totally comprised of outside people to provide that oversight for transparency. But it seems the way things are going, there will be people from the institutions, including from the European Parliament here. Probably they will be represented in some way on that future body.
Armen, thank you for that. That's our Europe editor, Armen Georgian, there reporting from Strasbourg.